The second thing that I wanted to talk about is what's happening now in Europe.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it.
one of the things that, and we spoke about this before, last week, we're speaking on Thursday. And so last week, the new vice president, J.D. Vance, which I think is very interesting because
Mm.
he's a he's a new convert to, not new, he's a convert to Catholicism, which means he's a very religious person also. So it's I think also a little bit because of that he looks at things in a different way than maybe a lot of old time politicians. It's not a secret that why Donald Trump would pick him, seeing this speech. So
Yeah,
he
I
gave,
also mentioned Pope
yeah,
John II, didn't he? Which I think
yes,
is he the one that had declared that after in the 60s, was it?
Pope John Paul was the pope that was
That
with Reagan and Thatcher against communism.
okay.
He was the big fighter against communism. They were the three world leaders that are credited with bringing down in the end the communism.
I'm looking up.
And so he gave a speech in the Munich Security Conference, and everybody thought that the speech would be about Ukraine and all that kind of stuff. And we could get into it. I think Trump is very wrong on the way he's handling Ukraine, but that's just my opinion. But he gave the speech and he said, basically, we have enemies outside, which is very good. We need to fight them. But the big enemy, the most important enemy, is the enemy within. And then he went and basically criticized European leaders to their faces. First of all, about in Germany not allowing into the conference, this big conference, anyone who supports the AfD.
The firewalling.
Yes,
I
and
saw it happening when I was there a couple of weeks
that
ago. There is a real firewall. And
in
by the way,
Germany,
yeah, you also interviewed. I saw
yes,
Beatrix
von
von.
Strauch. I'm not good with German names. Von Strauch. Yes, von Storch. Sorry,
Yeah, that's not her last name.
Storch. Hello. Okay, continue. One
Whatever.
thing.
Beatrix.
Yeah, the number two in the
Yeah.
Bundestag of AfD.
Yeah, they're being, and you said like, but I was there.
Yeah.
Like first, I heard like you said, like our embassy wouldn't work with the AfD, but then when I was there, I understood why. It's such a taboo to even talk about or talk with them inside of Germany. Like if Israel, which is a small country, would have tried to contacting them in any way, shape, or form, that would have been like they're undermining the German government. Like that's how seriously and how completely firewall they are, like insanity.
Right.
Which I had a conversation with somebody who worked for the CDU, which is the
The conservative, more mainstream
the Angela
party.
Merkel party.
Very conservative.
And she also talked about like the AfD because like their right branch, like the eastern branch, they have some neo-Nazis there and things like that. And I talked to people who are in the AfD and said, yes, we do have some problems with that. And it's kind of hard to kick them out because of technical reasons. But I remember us sitting down and she was talking about it. And I said, listen, you cannot firewall people just because of their opinions. And I say it as a Jew, okay? You have my permission to talk to those Nazis when it comes to certain issues, because you have things that you need to prioritize and saving Germany. And to do that, you'd have to work with people that you might not have worked with. And she just looked at me and was like, but how can you do that? I said, listen, if you take every Knesset member separately, I promise all of them are extremists. All of them. Some are extremely secular to a point where they hate religion. Some are extremely messianic. They believe that a Messiah should come. Some are extremely biblically kind of extremists. If you really sit down with almost each and every one of that's not talk about like the Muslim Brotherhood sitting in the government a couple of years. So if you talk to each and every one of them, they're all gonna be extremists, okay? So, and when I visited the Knesset just a month ago or so, I saw they had like I don't know how to call
table?
Like they have those meetings.
Committee.
A committee, yes. A committee between Abait Yehudi and I think it was Yesh Atid. So the most the religious party, and you have the anti-religious party, and they were having a committee on homelessness. Apparently, the anti-religious party and the religious party can agree that homelessness is a problem that we should be addressing.
Yeah.
And addiction. It was about addiction, actually. So,
But I think, Rebecca, that the main issue is that a lot of people and this is also what he said about Great Britain and all these other countries in Europe, that in Romania he mentioned, but I'm just putting Romania aside because it's not an issue that I really know about. But the main thing is that in Western countries, especially in Europe, they really are scared of free speech.
yeah.
They are trying, and not only free speech, they're trying to silence people that have different opinions than them. And I am almost an absolutist on free speech, and I very critical of Israel on this too. I think that the whole point of free speech is to allow voices that are very, very annoying to be spoken. We're all, like you said, a minority on some issues.
Yeah.
And we don't want the majority to be able to control what we say and what we can't say. And even people who have disgusting views in our opinion should be allowed to say them. We should be arguing, we should be talking with each other. We don't even have to listen to each other, but they have the right to say those things. We could mute them on YouTube or wherever you're watching your videos or listening. Point is that and that's the way we were able to win debates, by having them. When you shut people off, you make people become martyrs. You make the voices to be like sort of cool, retro, like people want to know, why are we shutting off? Who is talking things that you're not allowed to say? And so it a lot of times defeats the purpose. Like in Germany, you cannot be a neo-Nazi according to the law.
Right.
But there are.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are there if it's illegal? Because saying something illegal does not defeat it. It makes it even cool sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that the way we have freedom is, first of all, and from talking.
So something that actually from talking to Beatrix, I talked to her behind the scenes because I was not allowed to talk to politicians there. They told me I am too much. Because like
Why?
the only thing I said, like, because I listened to well, I was like, are you ready? Like it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, you have to be, are you prepared for the Intifada wave that is going to come to Germany now? And she just looked at me. I was like, you're going to have an Intifada, you know that. Like, are you technically prepared, like with your services, to have an Intifada? And they were like, shut up, shut up, shut up. You're too much, girl. But it's true, though. And
we saw Munich.
And you saw in Munich, and I was like, maybe my question was relevant, but I was told that I'm being too much. And I was like, but why am I being too much? This is something that Germany is going to face soon. Like, are you prepared to, I was curious, technically, like, are you
in meeting with politicians there?
Like, yeah, because that's the problem you're gonna have. I said, like, you're going towards Intifada. And I was told, she didn't tell me to shut up.
People
around were like, you're being...
Her aides.
And I was like, not her aides. Just
People
my people. My people said I'm being too much. I was like...
That's even worse.
That's even worse, because I was like, yeah, but this is why I do geopolitics and not politics.
Right.
Because I want to ask about things like geopolitically, like, are you prepared for the chance that if Egypt collapses, then you're going to have another wave of immigration? Are you mentally prepared to even worse wave of immigration than you had during the Arab Spring?
And the Syrian thing.
Yeah. It's way worse, and then they are blocking Sudan as well, not just themselves. Just like when Libya fell, like Gaddafi had warned, but it's going to be the same if Egypt falls, and Egypt is marching
in a very bad situation.
Is a bad situation.
But wait, let's keep on Europe, because one thing that I do want to ask you, and I think is interesting to say, is that there's a sort of feeling among, especially European elites, they look down on the U.S. I remember, like, you meet Europeans and they hear you're from America, because I'm from the U.S. originally, and they sort of It's like an automatic thing. They think they're better than America.
Mm.
They think they're the smart ones. JD Vance went to Yale, but they're the smart ones. They know better.
Y-
These rugged Americans with their free speech and their guns and their God, we don't like them. We're smarter. But then JD Vance comes and says, you're not letting people speak.
Right.
You're scared of your own people. And they're very offended.
His
Who is this
speech was
American
amazing.
guy who's dumb and stupid and thinks that he knows better than us? And they were so angry. You saw it in the newspapers after. They're really offended because I think also like they feel like they're really smarter and more like really these Americans are so stupid.
Well, they did feel this way. I agree with you, but I think that their reaction to Vance shows that with him, he didn't think that.
Why?
Because if they thought that, they would be like, whoever that, like, who's this loser? It's like this is how you act when you hear somebody who you genuinely think
Yeah.
you're better than. But I think their reaction actually shows that he struck a nerve, and
But they're really scared of their own people.
they
It's like a
are.
very weird thing. Because
They
usually you think, you think that worldly, like politicians, they try to listen to their people to try to get reelected. The whole point of, but here they found a way to go around it where they'll say, well, these people are like, they might beat me, so I'll just make them illegal. I'll just shut them up.
yeah.
So it's like, I'm very scared of it coming to here also. I mean, we've had it in different, on the fringes, things that you're not allowed to say. On both sides, by the way. I remember when in Israel, they like made people not, a lot of the right wing in Israel said we shouldn't let certain Arab parties run. And then they used the same laws that wouldn't let the Arab parties run to stop more extreme right wing Jewish parties from running. And I always said, if the
The judiciary in Israel is like the worst thing ever.
yes, but also it's not just the judiciary; it's also the Knesset. The Knesset made laws.
Because when you make laws, it's a way for the judiciary exploit it to their
It's
goals.
true.
It's like that's the reality of it. Like you make laws. Europe doesn't have a problem with their laws, and we like a lot of times like more laws makes things worse than
Yes.
better.
But also, with one of the things that we saw is that a lot of people are waking up to what's happening. So, I interviewed someone from the UK, and the UK is like the only country in Europe that went the other way. They elected a left-wing government,
Idiots.
but the other countries are all moving to the right. We're going to have the elections in Germany. The AfD will get more seats than they had way before. We're going to have the Holland, Geert Wilders' party became the biggest party in the parliament. In all the other, in Europe, in France, Le Pen is very popular. All these other countries in Europe are moving more to the right.
I think the UK doesn't have a right.
They have Nigel Farage.
I mean, he's not a right. Come on, he's a centrist at best.
Yeah.
I think so.
What does it mean to be right?
Nationalist. The UK is not very nationalistic in its parties. Not even like. I mean, I think because maybe they had too much of a culture of expanding rather than you can like here's the catch. It's very hard to be expansionist and a nationalist at the same time.
It's true.
So I think they just don't have a history of nationalism because it's a bit hard when you expand to also be like very
Yes.
nationalist.
But also English-speaking countries, I think in the last like decade, because of the woke culture, it's much stronger, I think, in English-speaking countries. That's just my feeling.
Well, it started in Germany in the 60s, this woke agenda.
But it's a lot less now in Germany than it is in America or in the UK or in Australia or whatever.
It's just different manifestations. So the US, UK, like they had what they did is like they took the communist agenda and not everybody is jealous of people who have money. It doesn't work in an American society where you're supposed to be happy for your neighbor who made it financially. But there was always like a color-based tension.
A race divide.
Yes, in the US and gender-based. This is something that was there. So the woke manifestation in the US caters towards those things. And it's very apparent because it's like, it's
Yes.
color of your skin and gender and things like that. In Italy, for example, that's pure communism that is being sold to them, right? A lot of them, like real, like fascism,
Yes.
like old school communism that is easy to sell to them, which wouldn't be. So I think the right way to look at it is just to think what is the exploit that fits the country, and then look at the woke from that perspective, and you see that the woke did exploit it.
Yes.
It's just that it looks different in every place, and you need to know the culture to understand the woke virus that had infected it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Western Spirit podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. See you next time.